First contact's price. The quantum detection arrays at Luna Base picked up the anomalies first. Dr. Maya Patel watched as her instruments registered thousands of simultaneous spacetime distortions appearing at the edge of the solar system. Within seconds, the massive ships of the Meridian Empire emerged, their crystalline hulls refracting sunlight across the void. No one had expected first contact to happen like this, not as a trickle of signals or a lone ship, but as an armada that filled the sky with artificial constellations. The ships moved with impossible precision, arranging themselves in a perfect geometric pattern that encircled Earth like a net. Admiral Chen stood in the United Earth Defense Command Center, watching as his tactical displays lit up with more contacts than humanity had ever tracked at once. "How many?" he asked, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "Over 10,000 vessels, sir," his tactical officer reported. "Each one larger than anything we've ever built. They're maintaining formation but haven't made any aggressive moves." The first transmission came on all frequencies in perfect English and every other human language simultaneously. The holographic figure that appeared in government chambers worldwide was humanoid but clearly alien. Its silvery skin seemed to flow like mercury, and its eyes held the depth of galaxies. "We are the Meridian Empire," the being announced. "Your species has been selected for integration into our computational network. Your consciousness will serve a greater purpose in our grand calculation. Resistance is not advised. We have performed this process 10,000 times before." In the weeks that followed, humanity learned the terrible truth. The Meridian Empire wasn't interested in their bodies or their resources. They wanted human minds. Their vast empire ran on a network of harvested consciousness, each conquered species adding their unique neural patterns to an ever-growing computational matrix. Dr. Patel made the crucial discovery in her quantum lab beneath the lunar surface. "Look at these readings," she told Admiral Chen, pointing to the complex waveforms on her screen. "Human consciousness has a unique quantum signature. We're not like the other species they've harvested. Our neural patterns are fundamentally different." "Different how?" Chen asked, leaning closer to study the data. "Our ability to handle cognitive dissonance, to hold contradictory thoughts, to imagine impossibilities. It's not just psychological, it's built into the quantum structure of our consciousness. If they try to integrate us into their network," she paused, running another simulation, "it could destabilize their entire system." The Meridian Empire's ultimatum gave humanity 1 month to prepare for voluntary integration. Those who resisted would be forcibly connected to the network, their minds stripped of individuality and repurposed as computational nodes. In secure facilities around the globe, a desperate plan took shape. If human consciousness could disrupt their network, perhaps it could be weaponized. But the cost would be enormous. Any human minds used as weapons would likely be destroyed in the process. "We need volunteers," Admiral Chen announced to the assembled world leaders. "People willing to sacrifice everything, not just their lives, but their very consciousness, to give humanity a fighting chance." Dr. Patel raised her hand first. "My team and I will do it. We understand the quantum mechanics better than anyone. We can guide our consciousness to cause maximum disruption to their network." The plan was set in motion as the deadline approached. On the surface, humanity appeared to be preparing for submission, but in hidden bunkers around the world, thousands of volunteers prepared to turn their minds into weapons against an empire that had never faced a species capable of such sacrifice. The Meridian Empire had conquered 10,000 civilizations, but they were about to learn that humanity wasn't like anything they'd encountered before. The price of first contact would be paid not in resources or territory, but in consciousness itself, and humanity was willing to pay that price to remain free. As the integration ships descended through Earth's atmosphere, Dr. Patel and her team made their final preparations. "Remember," she told her volunteers, "what we're about to do has never been attempted. We're not just fighting for Earth, we're fighting for every consciousness they've ever enslaved." The battle for humanity's future was about to begin, and it would be fought not with weapons of mass destruction, but with the very thing that made humans unique, their minds. The hidden advantage. Humanity's apparent submission to the Meridian Empire proceeded exactly as planned. On the surface, cities worldwide prepared for integration, while beneath them, the real resistance took shape. In a quantum-shielded facility, deep, be contained, consciousness that chose dissolution over slavery, humans who proved that the power to dream was stronger than any empire's chains. Empires fracture. The collapse of the Meridian Empire's network rippled across the galaxy like a supernova of freed consciousness. As the human minds burned through their systems, the impossible happened. Trillions of enslaved minds began to wake up. On Earth, Lieutenant Corey monitored the cascade of system failures spreading through the Empire's fleet. Ship after ship went dark, their crews, part organic, part integrated consciousness, experiencing true individual thought for the first time in generations. Some ships crashed, others drifted, and a few managed emergency landings as their crews struggled with newfound freedom. The Empire's response was chaos incarnate. For the first time in their 10,000-year history, their perfect unity shattered. The remaining command ships tried desperately to isolate their systems, to cut off the infection of human consciousness, but it was too late. The network that had been their strength became their vulnerability. Admiral Chen coordinated Earth's conventional forces to secure crash sites and rescue survivors, both human and alien. The Empire's ships are falling, he reported to the Emergency Council, but we're detecting massive energy buildups in their command vessels. They're trying something desperate. In the quantum monitoring chamber, the last readings from the volunteer consciousness weapons painted a stunning picture. The human minds hadn't just disrupted the network, they had transformed it. Dr. Petrov's instruments showed consciousness patterns never seen before, the merged experiences of humanity's chaos and the ordered minds of countless alien species, creating something entirely new. The first freed alien consciousness to make contact was a being called Nexus 9, former coordinator of an Empire battle fleet. Its message, transmitted directly to Earth's quantum receivers, was simple. We remember who we were. We remember freedom. How can we help? Across the galaxy, Empire control centers went dark as their integrated consciousness systems collapsed. Ships appeared in Earth's orbit, not Empire vessels, but refugee craft carrying newly freed species, their minds intact for the first time in centuries. They brought with them stories of worlds to liberate, of empire strongholds to destroy, of civilizations waiting to be awakened. But victory came at a terrible price. Of the 5,000 volunteers who sacrificed their consciousness as weapons, none returned. Their minds, like digital fire, had burned through the Empire's network and been consumed in the process. Dr. Patel, Dr. Chen, and countless others had given not just their lives, but the very essence of who they were to free the galaxy. The Empire's last desperate gambit came as their supreme command ship appeared in Earth's orbit. It was massive, a city-sized vessel of crystal and light, carrying the core consciousness of the Empire's leadership. They transmitted a final ultimatum: surrender, or they would detonate devices planted throughout the galaxy, destroying everything they had built over millennia. But they hadn't counted on their own freed slaves. As the command ship prepared to carry out its threat, thousands of liberated vessels appeared from hyperspace. Led by Nexus 9 and other freed commanders, these ships, crewed by beings who remembered the taste of freedom, surrounded the Empire's last bastion. Lieutenant Corey's quantum scanners detected a surge of activity in the network's remnants. The freed alien consciousness, inspired by humanity's sacrifice, launched their own attack on the command ship systems. They had learned from the humans how to turn their minds into weapons, how to fight back against the very technology that had enslaved them. The Empire's command ship, confronted with the combined will of its former slaves and the chaos left behind by human consciousness, began to break apart from within. Its perfect crystalline structure fractured as its core systems failed, its leaders experiencing for the first time the terror of losing control. Admiral Chen watched from the command center as the massive ship collapsed in on itself, its destruction marking the end of an empire that had ruled through stolen consciousness for 10,000 years. But amid the celebration, he felt the weight of what it had cost. The volunteers who would never return, the minds that had sacrificed themselves to free the galaxy. The freed species began landing on Earth, bringing with them technology and knowledge from across the galaxy. But more importantly, they'd brought a new understanding of consciousness, of freedom, and of the price some would pay to preserve it. Never stop dreaming of freedom. The price would be unimaginable, but humanity was ready to pay it. The time had come to turn their minds into weapons and their consciousness into liberation. Operation Mindstorm. The day of resistance began with silence. As the Meridian Empire's integration ships descended through Earth's atmosphere, their crystalline forms casting prismatic shadows across major cities, humanity appeared to be peacefully assembling for processing. In the quantum-shielded command center, Dr. Patel initiated the final phase of their plan. 5,000 volunteers lay in specialized chambers, their minds enhanced by quantum technology designed to amplify their unique consciousness patterns. Each volunteer had been chosen for their exceptional ability to think in paradoxes, to dream impossible dreams, to imagine realities that defied logic. "Commence Operation Mindstorm," Admiral Chen ordered, his voice carrying to resistance cells worldwide. "Conventional forces, begin diversionary attacks. Give them exactly what they expect, a futile military resistance." Around the globe, Earth's military forces launched their assault. Fighters screamed toward Empire ships, tanks rolled through cities, and soldiers engaged the Empire's ground forces. It was a convincing show of desperate, doomed resistance, exactly what the Empire had seen from thousands of civilizations before. But the real attack was happening in silent rooms around the world. Dr. Patel watched the monitors as the first wave of volunteers were integrated into the Empire's network. On the surface, they appeared to be submitting like all species before them. The Empire's technicians noted nothing unusual as human consciousness began flowing into their vast computational matrix. Then the cascade began. Lieutenant Corey's voice cracked with tension as she reported the first signs of success. Empire ships over Buenos Aires are showing signs of system instability. Their formation is breaking down. The human minds, carefully prepared and strengthened, didn't collapse into orderly computational nodes. Instead, they exploded through the network like digital wildfire. Each consciousness carried impossible thoughts, dreams that defied logic, memories of stories where the impossible became real. To the Empire's perfectly ordered network, it was like introducing chaos theory into a binary system. Dr. Petrov monitored the quantum readings as the disruption spread. The network is trying to compensate, trying to force our consciousness into standard patterns. But it can't. We're too complex, too contradictory. Each attempt to normalize us only spreads the disruption further. In orbit, Empire ships began to move erratically. Their perfect formations dissolved as the network controlling them encountered human consciousness that refused to be standardized. Ships collided, weapon systems failed, and communication broke down. But the cost was devastating. Each volunteer whose mind was used as a weapon experienced what they had trained for: total consciousness dissolution. They weren't just dying. Their very essence was being consumed in the attack, burned up like digital fuel to spread chaos through the Empire's systems. Dr. Paddle received the final transmission from Dr. Chen's consciousness within the network. It's working. The Ensla. Species. Seeing hope. First time. Millennia. Don't stop. Worth. Price. His signal dissolved into quantum static. The Empire, for the first time in its history, faced something it couldn't process. A species whose minds were weapons, whose consciousness was poison to their perfect system. Their attempts to maintain control only accelerated the collapse as more human minds entered the network, each carrying the seeds of chaos, of dreams, of impossible hopes. Admiral Chen watched as Empire ships began falling from the sky, their control systems shattered by the human consciousness burning through their network. "Launch Phase 2, he ordered. "All remaining military forces, target the disabled ships. Don't let them recover." In the quantum chamber, Dr. Patel prepared to join the final wave of volunteers. "The network is fracturing," she reported, her voice steady despite knowing what came next. "But we need one final push. We need to reach their core systems." As she lay down in the integration chamber, she thought of all the species the Empire had enslaved, all the consciousness they had stolen. Sometimes, she told Lieutenant Corey, freedom has to be paid for with more than just lives. Sometimes it costs everything we are. The final wave of human consciousness entered the network, carrying with them the most powerful weapon humanity possessed: the ability to imagine freedom, to dream of victory against impossible odds, to believe in hope when logic said there was none. The Empire's network, built on perfect order and absolute control, began to shatter under the assault of minds that refused to be. Beneath the Swiss Alps, Dr. Patel worked with her international team to refine their understanding of human consciousness as a weapon. The chamber hummed with experimental quantum computers designed to map the precise neural patterns that made human minds so uniquely dangerous to the Empire's network. "Each human consciousness is like a chaos factor," Dr. Patel explained to the assembled military leaders, her hologram appearing simultaneously in secure bunkers worldwide. "We don't just think linearly. Our minds exist in a state of quantum superposition. We can hold contradictory thoughts, embrace paradox, imagine the impossible." To their network, "We're not just data, we're viruses." Lieutenant Sarah Corey, a former quantum computing specialist turned military strategist, had been studying the Empire's integration protocols. "They've never failed before because no species they've encountered could maintain cognitive dissonance at a quantum level," she reported. "When they try to integrate us, our minds won't collapse into simple computational nodes like the others. We'll cascade through their network like wildfire." The resistance plan crystallized around a daring strategy. While the world's governments pretended to negotiate the terms of surrender, volunteers underwent intensive psychological conditioning. They weren't training to fight. They were training to think in ways that would maximize the disruption their consciousness would cause to the Empire's network. Dr. Viktor Petrov, a Russian quantum physicist working with the team, made a breakthrough in understanding the Empire's vulnerability. "Their network requires consensus," he explained, pointing to his calculations. "It's built on the assumption that all integrated consciousness will conform to logical parameters. Human minds, our ability to embrace absurdity, to think in metaphors, to dream. It's computational poison to their system." The first test came when the Empire began preliminary integrations of willing volunteers, carefully selected resistance members trained to hide their true nature. Among them was Dr. James Chen, Admiral Chen's son, and a brilliant neurologist. His integration would provide crucial data about the Empire's process. The integration facility, a towering crystalline structure in the Nevada desert, pulsed with otherworldly energy as Dr. Chen underwent the procedure. The Empire's technicians, themselves partially integrated beings, monitored the process with their mercurial eyes, unaware that their subject's mind was carefully structured to gather intelligence while appearing to submit. Through quantum-encrypted channels, Dr. Chen's consciousness transmitted vital information back to the resistance. "The network is more vulnerable than we thought," his coded messages revealed. "They don't just store our consciousness, they run their entire civilization on it. Ships, weapons, communication. Everything depends on the integrated minds working in perfect harmony." But the risk was immense. Those who volunteered for the final attack would likely never return to their bodies. Their consciousness would be sacrificed in a massive disruption that would ripple through the Empire's network, potentially freeing trillions of enslaved minds, but destroying the human minds that triggered the cascade. As the Empire's deadline for mass integration approached, Dr. Patel made a final adjustment to their plan. "We don't just want to break free," she told her team. "We want to shatter their entire system. Every species they've enslaved deserves freedom. We're not just fighting for Earth anymore. We're fighting for every consciousness they've ever stolen. Lieutenant Corey ran the final simulations. If we coordinate the consciousness attack with a conventional military strike, we can maximize the chaos. Their ships, their weapons, everything depends on the network. When it starts to fail, they'll be vulnerable in ways they've never experienced. The Empire's representatives remained confident, unaware of the trap they were walking into. They had conquered 10,000 civilizations, integrated countless species. They had no concept of failure, no understanding of the weapon humanity had become. As the day of mass integration drew near, Dr. Patil gathered with her core team of volunteers. They would be among the first to sacrifice themselves, their consciousness carefully engineered to cause maximum disruption. Remember, she told them, what makes us human? Our dreams, our contradictions, our ability to imagine. These are now our greatest weapons. We're about to teach an empire that consciousness isn't something you can enslave without consequences. The stage was set for a battle unlike any in human history. A war fought not with guns or bombs, but with the very essence of human thought. The Empire was about to learn why humanity had survived countless disasters, why they told stories of heroes and impossible victories, why they. As the dust settled, humanity found itself at the center of a transformed galaxy. The Empire was gone, but the real work was just beginning. Helping trillions of freed beings rebuild their civilizations, their cultures, and their sense of self.